Hi, this is Woדם, W0TM, my ham radio call letters. Another good view of my living room. That's the best thing I can put up there just when I'm going to be talking. Title of this video, Morgellons and the CDC, the real truth. Morgellons and the CDC, the real truth. I do not take credit for this. I do take credit for looking it up, verifying that the information given to me is in the public domain. It's right there. You can look it up yourself. The thing is that it is buried in so much federal papers, that it would take you 1,000 years to find it. It's been said many times, the best place to hide something is in plain sight. This is a very good example. Not going to say he or she, the name of the person that gave me this information. They would, at a minimum, if powers that be found out who it was that gave this information to me, or allowed me to put it in the public realm. Let me say that. They would at least minimum get fired, and at worst, much worse. So who gave it to me will remain a secret. As those of you that have Morgellons or are aware of Morgellons, have Lyme disease and are worried that your Lyme disease is going to progress into Morgellons. And that is a real worry, because Morgellons only infects people that have Lyme disease, have had it for a while. It's only about 1 out of 100. Approximately 1 out of 300 to 500 people on this earth have Lyme disease, and of those, about only 100 to every 300 have Morgellons, which means the number of people that have Morgellons is 1 out of several thousand, meaning there aren't many cases of Morgellons, but if you have it, you know you have it. It is centered, call it ground zero, in the Bay Area. There's a reason for that. I'll explain that in a minute. There's an often quoted finding from the CDC that they use anytime they're ever asked, have you ever investigated Morgellons? You know, this is, it's growing, more people are having it. It's very painful. It is disrupting lives. People are actually committing suicide. The number one reason for suicides currently in California, one Morgellons group organization published this, whether or not it's true I don't know, is Morgellons, that you can't get rid of it. It's driving you nuts. Nobody will listen to you. They laugh at you. They throw you off. They call you delusional. They'll even lock you up. Just all kinds of terrible things, even though some people clearly have lesions and splotches and all kinds of bad things on their skin. Obviously there's something wrong with them, but doctors, once they get to the point of looking at Morgellons, they go to the CDC statement and read it and say, oh, it says it's delusional. Delusional parasitosis is the official name. They say, you're just imagining it. I need to refer you to this doctor. Well, if you ask, you'll find, he or she will prescribe a medication. It'll turn out to be an SSRI, which is a antidepressant. And you don't need that. There's nothing wrong with you mentally, but that's what in their medical book, rather than doing any investigation, as far as I'm concerned, I have a low opinion of the medical community in general. They're there to prescribe pills and do minor things and, basically soak insurance companies. The entire medical industry is one big happy crime syndicate, best way I could describe it. Proper, correct medical care should be costing this country about 2 to 3% of our gross national product. In fact, it's costing about 11%, and it continues to go up. And I can give you many examples of major overcharges, charging $12 for an aspirin, I can give you dozens and hundreds of things like that. The CDC, in their report dated 2012, says to the people that complain of having the feeling of bugs racing just underneath their skin, causing intense scratching and itching, and very uncomfortable, is very real to them, but in fact is imaginary. It's delusional parasitosis. They have to throw in a medical term so that it throws people off. You don't know what it is until you get home and look it up and say, wait a minute, the doctor just blew me off by saying that I'm nutty. And that's why he gave me these darn pills and referred me to this doctor who turns out to be a psychiatrist. What a waste. What happened? Here's the real story. And you can take this to the bank. This was given to me and by somebody that is really, call it, in the know, and it is in the public domain, but you would never be able to dig it out all on your own, because the government doesn't do anything in writing without making it a 500-page document. The national federal budget published each year is, I heard one time, 40,000 pages, 100,000 pages. I mean, just huge, because they've listed every expenditure made during the last year, and then every expected expenditure for the coming year. Add it all up, it means garbage, or what they're going to spend, because they're always going to overspend what they say they're going to do, because they always come up with a balanced budget, which never happens, of course. In 2008, they finally, after receiving so many very adamant requests from people with Morgellons, that this scratching and so forth is driving me nuts, you've got to help, you've got to do something. The CDC has one of the best, if not the best, biological testing facility in the world. They would be the one to go to investigate Morgellons, to figure it out. They have used several excuses why they did not do it. They did not do that report, not a word of it. I don't care what people tell you or what they say. They didn't do it. They've used the excuse when they've been pinned down, oh, we were too busy, we had to contract it out, so on and so forth, whatever. Instead, the federal budget 2012 lists right there, and I've read it, the payment of $650,000 to Kaiser Permanente, and that's an insurance company. They don't have much of a medical lab. They have hundreds of medical facilities. A nurse with a needle that'll, you go in and apply for insurance. They want to check your blood to make sure that you're insurable. And they don't have much more than that. They gave it to Kaiser Permanente. 4 years later, people having Morgellons are increasing, and now Morgellons is breaking through the skin and causing lesions and sores and just nasty stuff to appear. It's getting a lot worse. They go back to the CDC, and the CDC finally checks and says, wait a minute, no, we never did get an answer back from Kaiser Permanente. What happened? Well, they went to Kaiser Permanente, and essentially, I believe Kaiser Permanente, it got lost. $650,000 is not much money to a company like them. It got lost in the shuffle. It took them 2 weeks to generate a report. What they did was there were 4,000 people in the test group, all saying they feel they have Morgellons and the symptoms and so forth. They got those people together, or they went into different testing facilities, let me say that, Kaiser Permanente facilities that have at least enough medical to draw blood and things like that. I've talked to one person that was one of these 4,000. They were given a questionnaire sheet to fill out, and blood was drawn. And I kid you not, I don't see how anyone was accepted as their results being valid. In fact, the report says 85% were ruled invalid and delusional parasitosis. In the blood, there was a fairly long list of things that can cause delusion. Minor things. Maybe you're on a drug. Maybe you're on a painkiller, hydrocodone, or Valium or something. That immediately threw you out of the test group and you were ruled invalid. Many drugs that, once in a blue moon might cause a minor delusion, whatever, it got you thrown out. That really cut the numbers down. Then, for the people that were showing visible lesions, sores, actually blood popping up, appearing on their skin, things like that, far more than just itching. For instance, I've got the disease, and I don't itch that much. Sometimes I hurt. The pain is beyond unbearable, but I have found ways to lower it, just as I have found ways to really lower the symptoms of Lyme disease. By the way, not an advertising plug, but I wrote a book about Lyme disease, how to lower the symptoms, and it was very successful. I've gotten thousands of thank you notes from people thanking me for helping them with their Lyme disease. Personally, the symptoms of Lyme disease for me went from where I couldn't get out of bed to where at least the symptoms of Lyme are just about gone, I think. It's hard to tell because some of them cross with Morgellons. So for me, is it Morgellons or Lyme? I don't know. But I figured out my background. Those of you who subscribe to me know that I was a research scientist for decades. So I did the same thing and figured things out and finally wrote a book about it because I was helping other people that knew what I was doing. They did the same things, and now I'm having success with Morgellons, at least the internal part of Morgellons. I'll be doing a video about that later on. If you can't wait, write me, gyantis@gmail.com, gyantis@gmail.com, or call me, 913-441-6593. I'll be happy to tell you what I know and get your Morgellons put in, or lower the symptoms and make you feel a lot better. I know it's really helped me. Anyway, they did not do the report. After a short while, one of the questions was, and I kid you not, have you ever attempted, even without thinking, tried to harm yourself? That includes getting so mad that you banged your head against the wall. If you said yes, that meant you were that you were could harm yourself, and that also threw you out of the test group, because if you did that, you could also cause wounds on your arms and legs and so forth that would resemble Morgellons. You know, a simple question like that. And some of the other questions were just ridiculous. You know, they're so vague and so simple, you know, that I don't see, they had to have, you know, doctored things up to come up with 85%, because it should have been 100%. They gave that back to the CDC. The CDC rewrote it, put it on their own document. The document, if you get a copy of it, says CDC, you know, so on and so forth. My doctor, who is one that doesn't take no for an answer, he's a very rare individual. I've told him the story. He's one of few doctors that believe Morgellons is real. Among other reasons, he has one other patient with Morgellons, so he can compare that patient with me and say, yeah, you know, it must be real because I can see it. You know, it's right here. He digs into things, investigates things. He got to the point where he finally called the CDC, and he told me, I actually talked to one of the people whose name is on the CDC report, and the person immediately read me the document, and, you know, saying that it's delusional parasitosis and so forth. And my doctor told me, he said, oh, you mean the report that you paid Kaiser Permanente $650,000 to do and write and give to you for you to put the CDC stamp on it and say that this comes from the CDC? Question mark. The only thing that happened was a click. The guy, you know, the guy on the other end of the CDC hung up on him. He immediately called back. The operator told him, okay, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know what, I have no idea, I can't even connect you to anybody, I can't let you talk to anybody. I'm just a telephone operator. I have no authority to do anything, but we have lists here of people that are not allowed to call into the CDC. Most of them have time limits, like 30 days. Your name just suddenly popped up on a list that is on my screen when I type in your name, that it's not 30 days, it's forever. You can never talk to anybody at the CDC ever again. I can't connect you with anybody. You can send us a letter, you can do an email, but that's it. So there you go. There's a reason for that. In 1992, and it's even on the internet, Stanford University was paid to create a biowarfare agent that ended up being called Morgellons many years later. It was meant to disable enemy soldiers. And what the people at Stanford were told, I have no idea. Stanford being in the Bay Area, among other reasons why so many people in that area have Morgellons. If you go to the Bay Area, you'll find thousands of people that have Morgellons. They have groups, they have sessions, they have meetings, you know, on and on like that. 65% of all Morgellon cases are in California. California, as I say, has, of the suicides that occur in California each month, the highest, the number one reason is Morgellons. You will never find Morgellons listed as cause of death. Heart attack, unknown seizure, you know, so forth. There's a reason for that, and there's a reason for the government wanting to cover this up, because they created Morgellons in 1992 for unknown reasons, beginning in 1996 with the chemtrails. And no, I don't want any emails telling me there's no such thing as chemtrails. I'm going to do another email about that. I am an expert on avionics, aerospace, so forth, having been in that industry for a long time. But for chemtrails, they added the agent that took on the name Morgellons in 2001, given that name by a lady whose son got infected with Morgellons, and came up with that name. You can look it up yourself where the name came from. It should be called bioengineering, but it's called Morgellons instead. 1996, they added it to what is sprayed on all of us with this darn chemtrails that now covers all 50 states, Canada, all North America, Europe, South America thus far appears to be, well, that's a whole other story about areas of the world where chemtrails have not yet appeared. But the United States is thoroughly soaked with what is in chemtrails, the heavy metals, and there are ways to get rid of heavy metals. I'm going to cover that in another video. Morgellons and the CDC, when you read that statement that says it's delusional parasitosis, not real, it's imaginary, they did not write that report. They didn't do the testing. They didn't do anything other than sign off on the government paying Kaiser Permanente. How they picked them, I have no idea. To do a test, which was really nothing more than, you know, a quickie, and doing, you know, somebody sitting there writing it all up, totally, you know, just garbage, you know, garbage in, garbage out. So the Morgellons and the CDC, that they're saying that is delusional parasitosis. The report came from Kaiser Permanente, was rigged. Kaiser Permanente was told what the conclusion was supposed to be before the report was ever, before the testing was ever started. So you can throw that one out. Morgellons is real. There's enough testing to prove that. Independent testing by people that are not government, but they have every government, as I say, has every reason to cover it up, just like they have every reason to cover up Lyme disease, because they weaponized it much greater than it had been. The SS Nazis were the ones that came up with Lyme disease in 1939, in 1952, on Plum Island, Connecticut, in Lab 257. There's a book actually out with that name. Fascinating book to read. That book is worth the money many times over. It's been taken out of print many times. The government can't seem to stop it. You really need to get a copy before they take it off the market again. Amazon still lists it, Lab 257. They weaponized Lyme disease. One reason you can't get it out of your body is that it is inserted in the DNA of your DNA stringlets, and unless you're a DNA expert, getting it out is not, well, it's above my pay grade. What's needed are DNA experts to be able to, Lyme disease and other diseases, Ebola, Zika, other man-made illnesses, diseases, have all been inserted in the DNA, so on purpose, so that they're stuck in there. All you can do is lower the symptoms. You cannot get rid of the disease. But I wanted to pop the bubble of the CDC findings, their conclusion, their report. They didn't do it, they didn't write it, they had nothing to do with it. They put their name on it, they refer to it, they use it for plausible deniability, and that is it. You have other questions, please let me know. I'm going to be doing some other videos that relate to this. You'll be seeing those coming up. I think that pretty well covers it. I do very much always appreciate subscribers, people watching my videos. Thank you very much. With that, this is W0TM signing off, and see you on the next video. Take care.